Sixth House podcast yet again. We are doing the big one and reading through the sermons of Vivec with resident expert
Indorel Nervar. If you
That's
want to
right,
introduce like
an
that.
expert. Oh yes,
the one and only.
the one and only, baby. I'm in these. These are excellent pieces of fiction. I think it's one of the best faux religious texts I've ever seen, and I'm a connoisseur of such things.
The connoisseur.
So-
Yeah, it's definitely a wild ride. I haven't read all of them, but I've listened to a read through of quite a few, and it gets a little weird. A little weird.
How weird.
Yeah, it gets pretty weird. Oh man, have you read them?
I only read them in Russian back in 2005.
Oh man, I would kill to get a copy of these in Russian.
Oh,
I want to know
I have
so
a lot
badly.
Of those. I have a lot of those.
Could you send that to me? I would really appreciate that.
Sure. I'll find them and send them to you.
Oh man, that's so wonderful. I want to know because they've got a lot of really, really interesting wordplay in this, and I'd be very curious to see that in Russian.
Yeah, I do.
So
Yeah,
guess
I was
let's
also
start
wondering
off,
about
get
that,
into
yeah.
wordplays. Like when I was hearing a bunch of wordplays, I'm like, I don't remember those. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah. So let's start off. Maybe do you want to start off by hitting the first line of this, or do we want to talk about the history of these? Because they've got an interesting real-world history too. As my man, Mr. Kirkbright here, I think he, there's some conjecture on how he actually wrote these, but I'm just gonna say that it was probably a lot of illicit substances in his blood. A lot of skooma. A lot of skooma. That man was on skooma.
I am inwardly agreeing with you, but as Michael Kirkbride has said this before, apparently it was sleep deprivation, scotch, or maybe it was bourbon, some sort of brown liquor, and his roommate leaving him food at his door so that he could complete these by the deadlines. Now, that said, I have to outwardly say that. That said, reading these really makes me doubt what he said. But out of respect, I will tentatively say he was probably only drunk.
I get it. There's brown liquid and sleep deprivation can do a lot to a man.
Yes.
All on the road.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
He just feels like the accusations take away his own creativity, like it kind of makes it about the drug. So I just, I needed to gotta chime in with that just in case, Well,
in case my hero is listening, I will say I think that anybody who is writing this kind of thing, regardless of how many drugs you are on or not on,
skooma.
I think that it is entirely based on your own creativity. I think that skooma only brings out whatever you've got locked in the noggin. So.
Oh, absolutely! I totally agree with that.
Skooma brings out the best in a man. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not encouraging.
Absolutely.
We're not encouraging any skooma use.
Not encouraging skooma use. Just saying that if it were to happen that skooma use were involved, it wouldn't be the skooma that wrote these beautiful lessons.
True that.
So I guess let's start off maybe and let's hit the first line here. So the first line, if we want to do a lore dive into what these are, look at, the actual analysis of the text. And this is something that I think Connor will have and of course Zeke over here will have an excellent time looking at here, is he was born in the ash among the Velothi and on Chimer before the war with the northern men. So that has already a lot of really important implications. That's the birth of Vivec.
So he was born in the ash?
Yeah, they say he was born in the ash.
Weird.
So this is This is during the time period of the Chimer, or Chimer, or Chimmer, or Kimmer, or however you pronounce it.
If you don't say
Um,
Chimer, I'm your enemy, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Chimer, but, you know, there's plenty of people who are like, oh, my pronunciation is this, whatever. So, the Chimer are the race, Velothi is their culture. And Velothi is based off of Saint Veloth, who was the first quote-unquote Chimer to leave and go to Morrowind. And one of the reasons that he did it was because the three Daedric princes, Boethia, Mafala, and Azura, came and were like, hey, we can teach you shit.
And the monetize.
Absolutely. Immediately. Yeah, so Sermon 1 covers the birth of Vivec and the sort of lead up to his ascension into the world. And in this first line, we get, of course, our introduction, I think, to the... Actually, I don't know if there's any other mentions of the Velothi or the Chimer before this in any Elder Scrolls text. But the first thing we get is the Velothi and the Chimer, and before the war with the Northern Men. So that refers, I believe, to... Say again?
At Morans?
Yeah, exactly. It refers to the sort of conflict between the elves that was had with, between the Outmorans and probably a lot of the Falmer, but, the Outmorans went into different parts of Morrowind, which at this time was being referred to as Resdane.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah, sometimes I name my cities Resdane in different video games I play, but anyway.
Oh yeah, Resdane's fantastic. It's a fantastic name. So the idea is it suggests here that he was born in the ash, meaning that he was born really, I think what it's trying to say is that he was born in the land of Resdane, in Morrowind.
I agree, yeah.
Which means that there was a significant period of time where, the Chimer and the Velothi people are prospering in these lands of Resdane.
Wait,
they're warring with...
Chimer and the Velothi people different?
So, all right, so here's how I understand it, is the Chimer are a group of Aldmer or some other derivation of Mer, not Altmer, but Aldmer, the old Mer, who essentially... Allegedly.
Just gotta throw that in there as an elf hater. Other than the Dunmer people, even I have a heart for the Dunmer.
Oh yeah, everything I say is maybe true, maybe not. Elder Scrolls lore is very ambiguous, but
I forgot to give that. I forgot to give that
disclaimer. It's a good disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. This is our opinions and our interpretations of the lore.
Yeah.
Most of this stuff doesn't even have an official canonization, so take everything with a grain of salt, and then put another grain with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Chimer are... I think that the Chimer are necessarily descended from the Velothi, those who followed Saint Veloth, but I think of it more as looking at it as like a difference between, like, let's say, for instance, you're from Israel and you're Israeli, but your religion is you're Jewish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to be Israeli necessarily to be Jewish, and you don't have to be Jewish to be Israeli, but there's a connection, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The Velothi, the Chimer come from the sort of they come from Veloth, if that makes sense. Those who follow Veloth became Chimer, or more specifically, those who followed Boethian, Azura, and Mafala became Chimer, and they were gifted with golden skin, which is the sort of the like physical
I can't
kind of
on that.
It's an allegory. Skin in the Elder Scrolls universe is very often used as an allegory to culture itself.
By the way, guys,
Yeah.
those who are watching, don't be shy. Comment down below. Write whatever you want for your discussions.
Oh yes.
And like
Absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
podcast if you can. Like, share. Yeah, go ahead.
So, since we brought up our holy false god Trinity, do you want to touch on just a hair of each of them?
Sure. So let's.
Actually, I have a
let's
question
talk about Beloth,
right off the bat. I got a question right off the bat.
Yeah, go for it.
So the way the Trinity worked pre Skyrim was assumedly Boethia presented male and Azura and Mafala female. And if you look at it, it's very interesting that the tribunal is the reverse of that. There are 2 males in the tribunal, or two men in the tribunal, and 1 woman. And
See,
I thought that was really...
I was actually going to point out, interestingly enough, Vivec is labeled with the pronoun he throughout pretty much all of the 36 lessons. But it is, Vivec is famously a hermaphrodite.
He is.
Correct,
and,
yes.
Takes on gender roles that are maybe a little bit less than traditionally masculine. So I think that there is sort of a... I think there's something to be said with that, though Vivec is often referred to as he.
Yeah, I personally use, as I have not read Coda and Coda's not canon, I pretty much use still he, him. Now some channels use they, them, some channels use Zir and Zur self. Which is fine. I mean, I believe that comes from Coda's pronoun usage, but I mean, it's yeah, exactly. It's just, different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say, I would love to make a
It's what
to make a point of saying
someone said.
Yeah. Well, I would love to make a point of being like, oh, they can, Daedric princes swap their sexes, but interestingly enough, at least in my opinion, it would be more interesting if the anticipation of Vivec had been like Boethia.
Yeah,
who changes sexes a lot.
Yes, I wish that they had given Mafala the changes gender randomly, and that way it would have aligned a lot more allegorically to the opposite, which would be Vivec, who is both at the same time.
By the way,
I agree, and also I think that Mafala, who's the anticipation of Vivec, fits more with Almalexia, not Boethia.
By the way,
yeah.
I'm now thinking about this. Maybe we should have named this why Vivec is the real antagonist. No, we can talk about that later. That's a loaded topic. But
it is a loaded topic. It's true though.
Yes, he, they, them, they are really. They're not a good person, or God, or whatever.
Absolutely. Let's just be honest. Vivec's pronouns are false deity.
Yes.
Ooh, shade has been thrown.
Fired.
If you can hear me, Vivec, come fight me. Where's your divinity now, bud?
Well, I mean, he may have achieved Kim, and I don't know how that works with also being mortal. I don't think he can lose his what would you call it?
His mojo?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense for Sotha and Almalexia because they didn't achieve Kim. But if you achieve Kim, you basically become a lucid dreamer. So you're a god there too. So I don't know. I'm not sure if Vivec
that's the reason he escaped.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You could say,
We're probably gonna get into it if he actually did achieve Kim. Anyhow,
That is an important bit of information.
The only Kim he achieved is Kardashian. Anyway, let's
That's facts.
let's continue with the lessons. What else is there?
Absolutely. So after we get the, he was born in the ash among the Velothi on Chimer before the war with the Northern Men, we get an indication of Vivec's divine origins. And so it says, I am, and I am is I don't know how to say that, like
you can spell
pseudonym or just a...
Pseudonym, yeah. No,
it's
yeah,
not exactly
pseudonym.
a pseudonym or however, but let's see.
Is it...
I am...
I think it's I am, Vec, and Set, right? Those are the
I am, Vet,
three.
and Sec. It's that's the name of the Daedric letter that is like the first letter of her name.
Yeah.
Just
Which
like
again makes sense. Velothi walked out and started worshiping Daedra probably before the aliens. I don't know if
That's a good question.
That is an interesting question. Did the aliens turn to Daedric worship first, or did the Velothi?
Well, before we get into another huge tangent, I think that the great religious schism that happened in the sphere of the Aldmer was a kind of I think that it left a whole bunch of splinter factions leaving leaving Aldmeris, Somerset, however you want to say it, like at the same time.
Oh, you think
I think they all formed it around the same time. I think that there was a religious schism, and then everybody sort of branched off from each other and started doing their own thing at like roughly the same period.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So let's look at this line. It is, I am came first to the village of the Nechiman, and her shadow was that of Boethia, who was the prince of plots, and things unknown and known would fold themselves around her until they were like stars, or the messages of stars. So that's our first hint into the anticipations, really, is I am and Boethia, Almalexia and Boethia, having a sort of kind of a divine connection between them. Her shadow is that of Boethia. So that's the first thing, saying I am and Boethia, they are not necessarily one and the same, but they're reflections of each other, two sides of the same divine principle, divine coin here.
Precisely. Boethia being one of my favorite Daedric princes, probably my favorite Daedric prince, honestly, because it is specified that they loved Lorkhan, and that is the reason why they decided to kill Trinimac. Well, I mean, change Trinimac.
Eat Trinimac.
Yeah, and then Nechiman, that's just like
that's
basically like a farming job.
Yeah,
right.
It's like a cattle herder. They herd netches.
Right, exactly.
So if you're a Nechiman, yeah.
Man,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
These texts are.
If you're a Nechiman, you herd netches.
I can already tell these texts are very pretentious. Let's continue.
They are. Yeah, and so like Connor was saying, the Prince of Plots, Boethia, who was the Prince of Plots, that refers to Boethia's sphere. I mean, these things are, if you ever want to read any of these are so juicy and jam-packed with Elder Scrolls lore. It's insane. You can dive into every topic in Elder Scrolls using just these.
Yeah.
Which is why we're going to have so many tangents.
Yes. All right.
The next line.
Yeah,
reads,
this will be an ongoing series, just for everybody listening, and it will probably be a very long one if the cards turn up correct. Hopefully, it'll be a long one.
Yes.
We hope so. This is a great text. The next line reads,
great set of texts.
I am took a Nechiman's wife and said, I am the face-snaked queen of the 3-in-1. In you is an image and a 7-syllable spell. I am a set a Vec, which you will repeat to it until mystery comes. That is That's pretty easy to sort of analyze here. Is the 3-in-1, the face-snaked queen of the 3-in-1 refers to the tribunal, the 3-in-1, three gods in one sort of united, encapsulated goal. I am a Seti, a Vec. For the time being, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying, by Morrowind, that might change a little bit, but...
Disclaimer, this is propaganda written by a god who has penned this in equal parts truth and lies.
By the way, can you turn
Yeah,
up your mic a
exactly.
little bit more in the row? Just a little bit.
Let me give it a go. How's you said turn up?
Yes.
Yeah, how's this?
Good. Is that the max?
Unfortunately, it is. I need to get a better mic set up.
Okay, good enough. I can give you my old one if I get a new one soon.
Sure.
Let's just do that. Okay. Let's continue.
So it's I am a Seti, a Vec, which refers to Almalexia, Sothisil, and Vivec. It then reads, which you will repeat to it, that is the egg, which is, this child, until mystery comes. And as I understand it, mystery means Sothisil, who is the sort of, a figure in the tribunal that has much mystery about him.
He's so
exactly.
mysterious.
I said it better myself. He's so mysterious. Oh my gosh.
I know when you find him, he's... Okay, when you find Sothisil in Morrowind, he's not a mystery anymore. He's a mystery meat. That's what he is.
No, he is. No, he's nasty. He's gross.
I really love what Renegade, I believe it was Renegade, did with where Sothisil uploads his mind to the Clockwork City, but he's just, you just see the picture of his body, and it's just slowly moving back and forth, but he's talking through a speaker system. It was really funny.
Mm-hmm. It's very gross. If you've ever played Morrowind, that's probably one of the nastiest sections of the game.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is about as terrifying as Lucian's punishment in Oblivion.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very dark stuff.
Speaking of nasty, the next line is our first foray into the really gross stuff that you can expect moving forward into the 36 lessons. It is.
Oh, wait. Before we do that,
up?
let me. So the allegory here so far is that, as far as I understand it, Almalexia has given to the Netchman's wife basically her egg, quote unquote.
Jesus.
And then this next part will show us the other side of that.
Oh,
or
yes.
this part after this, actually. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next line reads, "Then I am threw the Netchman's wife into the ocean waters, where Drays took her into their castles of glass and coral. They gifted the Netchman's wife with gills and milk fingers, changing her sex so that she might give birth to the image as an egg. There she stayed for 7 or 8 months."
All right, so there's a bit here to unpack.
Okay, let me try to draw this.
Now.
Hold on. Or, let's see.
You're going to draw a milk finger for us?
Also terrifying. Good luck and also terrifying.
Okay, so repeat this line again. Let's try this.
Absolutely. Give it your best go. We'll start with the first sentence here. "Then I am threw the Netchman's wife into the ocean water, where Drays took her into their castles of glass and coral. They gifted the Netchman's wife with gills and milk fingers, changing her sex so that she might give birth to the image as an egg. There she stayed for 7 or 8 months."
Let's see.
Man, I'm loving that drawing already.
Hey guys, Japan called. Yeah. They want their lore back.
That is absolutely Japan lore. This is very nasty stuff. While my man Zake is drawn over here, so we're going to talk about Drays and their castles of coral and glass. Drays, for anybody who doesn't know, very simply are crab men.
They're a little bit more than that.
They're gross crab men.
Oh man, they are scary. So let me go off on the dregs.
Yeah, I mean, like,
however
I sort of drew whatever that meant.
Sure. So the Druze, they started in the what I believe is the previous Kalpa, although it's a little weird. They ruled the planet as a terrible, like, dictator, just the worst kind of people. And one of them, the king, would in the next Kalpa become Molag Bal. He was actually originally a Dreg, a king. And for a quick description, when they are not fertile or not in mating season, they resemble the torso and head of a man, the hands of a crab, and the body and tentacles of an octopus.
Yes, I've
seen they
them.
are, as someone with a phobia of the ocean, as well as phobias of cockroaches, they're kind of terrifying, especially in Morrowind, where they swim up to you at light speed. It is. I did not like the treks in Morrowind.
Yeah,
but when they are mating, when it is mating season, they come to land and somehow, some way, grow crab-like legs, or really closer to lobster
legs.
Which
you can see in Oblivion, by the way.
Yes, Oblivion had that, and that may have been a retcon that Bethesda just threw in after the fact and was like, "Oh no, look, it's just a difference between, mating season and not." It's not entirely clear, but I mean, I can accept that alteration.
Yes, I like how you showed milk fingers there.
Yeah, they're almost as gross as the idea of milk fingers being given to the Netchaman's wife. That's an allegory for male anatomy, as I understand it.
It's
so
like those
that this
aliens from like that one movie.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's exactly like those aliens. Yes. I don't know if she can pee through them though. So she is given these gills and milk fingers so that she can essentially go underwater and take this image that IM has given to her and sort of asexually reproduce almost in order to give birth to Vec as a pure being which has come from, divine providence, it seems, being carried by the Netchaman's wife. And this is almost similar to, I would say that this is actually very much a brown liquid and your roommate bringing you food version of the Virgin Mary.
I see.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Kirkbride drew a lot of different threads together from a lot of different spiritual groups. It's very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. He's an absolute master at the fabrication of mythologies. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, our last sentence here, there she stayed for 7 or 8 months. That's a gestation period.
Yes,
it seems. Just chilling after the milk finger action, basically.
But what happened to the egg? I'm confused.
Yeah, so think about it like this. She is, to sort of paraphrase it, IM pops onto the scene and goes, "Hey, you, wife of Netchaman, here for you is what you carry inside you is the image of, Vivec here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss you into the ocean, and you're going to use these milk fingers and gills that I have gifted you to impregnate yourself so that you can take this image of Vec and then later give birth to Vec as an egg. So sort of, as I understand it, she is not giving live birth to Vec. She's laying an egg.
I see.
Yes.
Can I interject and say I think this is BS? I think Vivek was just actually a poor man's kid.
Oh, you think? No, this is
like we could talk about the actual story of Vec at some point, but yeah, like I said earlier, this is an autobiography. It should be mentioned. So this was written by Vivek.
Right. And it is absolutely, without a doubt, a propaganda piece.
It's like Kim Jong-un.
And, exactly,
born.
Exactly that. It's the Kim Jong-un story of Vivek. I mean, and you'll see that they mention Vivek hasn't been born yet, and they've already said I am and Set are around, which implies that these two gods of the tribunal are transcending time and space to give birth to Vivek before either of them had become gods in the canonical timeline. So this presumes quite a bit of power for the tribunal, including the fact that they can transcend time and space at will in order to create Vivek.
Well, I am skeptical that any of this happened at all, especially given what we'll eventually talk about, the two secret texts. But I don't think that when they achieved godhood, they actually could go back in time and do this.
100%.
Especially not without Kim.
I could go on and on about how false the texts are, but our one true god Dagoth is forgiving enough to let it slide just a little bit, at least for the time being.
All right.
Well, sure. Because to be fair, we're going to dump all over this eventually. So we'll praise. Yeah. We'll bring honor to the 6th house in the Tribe Unmourned.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's a certainty.
So what's the next?
So the next line here, so we can get through sermon 1 here, is then Set came to the Nechaman's wife and said, and that's Sothasil Set, I am the clockwork king of the 3-in-1. In you is an egg of my brother's sister, who possesses invisible knowledge of words and swords, which you shall nurture until the Hortator comes. This line's pretty easy to get at. The Clockwork King, Set, makes his way to visit the Nechaman's wife after this period of 7 or 8 months.
Set. For the Seal's name.
Yeah, that's what they call. That's what they. Well, that's his god name. He took on an anime avatar and a gamer tag when he became a god.
I see.
Pretty much. The only one that actually in lore has some sort of. So when you talk to Vivek in Morrowind, and he kind of describes how Vivek and Vec are two different entities. Vec the god versus Vivek the mortal, I believe he puts it. And it's kind of a cope for him to be like, well, I'm Vec now, so I didn't kill Nerevar, but Vivek the mortal definitely did. It's a little bit of cope, but there is some in lore references to it maybe being the case that they are technically the same person but different.
It wasn't me. It was
when you yeah, it's exactly the same thing. When you play through ESO, there's some beautiful lines in there about this particular situation. All the Morrowind stuff they do is not bad.
Oh, that's good.
So they say, Vivek possesses invisible knowledge of words and swords. This refers to his role as the warrior poet, as he'll come to be known, which you shall nurture until the Hortator comes. This is saying, take care of this egg image until Nerevar, the Hortator, can start guiding Vec.
Makes sense.
It makes as much sense as this text is going to.
Yeah.
And
this is
Set
gonna-
extended his hand. Oh yeah, what's
I
up?
can tell it's gonna be a wild ride already.
It's whack. This is
Yeah,
going
it
to be
hasn't
a
even-
really. This next one's going to be a really big block of text. So put on your listening ears here. And Set then extended his hand, and multitudes of homunculi came forth, each like a glimmering rope through the water. And they raised the Nechaman's wife back to the surface world, and set her down on the shoals of Azura's coast. There, she lay for 7 or 8 more months, caring for the egg knowledge by whispering to it the codes of Mafala and the prophecies of Veloth, and even the forbidden teachings of Trinimac. 7 Daedra came to her one night, and each one gave to the egg new motions that could be achieved by certain movements of the bones. These are called the Barons of Move Like This. Then an 8th Daedroth came, and he was a demiprince called Fe Nu Hen, or the multiplier of motions known. And Fe Nu Hen said, "Whom do you wait for?" To which the Nechaman's wife replied, "The Hortator. Go to the lands of the Indoril in 3 months' time, for that is when war comes. I return now to haunt the warriors who fell and still wonder why. But first, I show you this." Then, the barons and the demiprince joined together in a pillar of fighting styles terrible to behold, and they danced before the egg and its learning image. Look, little Vec, and find the face behind the splendor of my bladed carriage, for in it is delivered the unmixed conflict path, perfect in every way. What is its number? It is said that its number is the number of birds which can rest in an ancient Tibril tree, less than 3 grams of honest work. But Vivec, in his later years, found a better one, and so gave this secret to his people. For I have crushed a world in my left hand, he will say, but in my right hand is how it could have won against me. Love is under my will only. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. Lot to unpack in that one.
Yeah, let's start with the homunculi. So
Yes.
to be slightly child friendly, basically it's implying that Set and Amalexia are the mother and father, quote unquote, of Vivec. Like it's I'm sure you can pick up on the
Amalexia or
subtext with the
Boethia?
glimmering rope.
Almalexia or Boethia?
No, Amalexia. Boethia, Azura, and Mafala in this are kind of like the precursors, I guess you would say.
Yeah, they're like, imagine it, they're like the anticipations is what they're called. And so that they're referred to as being a sort of a placeholder for the tribunal.
I see.
And the homunculi are kind of, a homunculi is, a fabricant. It's these things that Set can make. You guys know what a homunculus is. It's in this case, it refers to clockwork organisms, I believe. And they raised the Nechaman's wife out of the ocean onto the shoals of Azura's coast, which is a place in Tamriel that you guys, I'm sure, are aware of. That's where I think that's where most of Morrowind takes place.
Let me make this graph. So you're saying Almalexia plus
We need a character relations chart for this topic.
plus Sotasil equals Vivec? Right?
It's gross, but that's a solid interpretation. Very, very kind of nasty to think about, though.
Yeah.
If they're not like the mother and father, like, because you can't. There's a lot of people involved in Vivec's birth. It's a veritable orgy of origin stories. So
Yeah, reminds me of Heimdall, who has
yeah.
somehow had 7 mothers. Like, woo.
Oh,
Yeah,
Neshaman's
I must
wife
have,
is surrogates.
so there's a lot of people who are responsible in this text. At least it's implied that there are a lot of people who are responsible for the birth of Vec, and that's the first. This is just the first sermon. There's so many wacky things that go on here. So they raise her out of the ocean, and for 7 or 8 months, she is holding this egg knowledge of Vivec. This egg that Vivec is sort of, he's doing the kind of turning into the cosmic goo that eventually becomes the hermaphrodite known as Vivec here.
Someone in the
Yeah.
chat wrote, "It takes a village."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
By the way,
exactly right.
everyone
That's
watching,
exactly right.
thank you for being here. Like and subscribe, and write in the chat below. And if you're enjoying this, and share and comment after the video is posted. All right, continue. It was cool.
Absolutely. Leave the comments in the parchment here. So she carries this egg knowledge and whispers to it the codes of Mafala, which are a sect of Velothi teachings. Of course, this Nechaman's wife, who lives in Resdane, she's a Chimer, is one of these golden-skinned elves, is very familiar. She's a probably pretty zealotously raised to worship the Daedra Boethia Zera Mafala. And so she whispers the codes of Mafala, the prophecies of Veloth, which are the sort of founding texts of the Velothi religion. And she also whispers to Vec the forbidden teachings of Trinimac.
Yeah,
So
Now, I'm not entirely sure what the reference is here, so I'm hoping you can enlighten us. But for anybody who doesn't know, Trinimac, the kind of honor guard of Oriel, he's the one that is responsible for ripping out Lorcan's heart, which is why he gets his just desserts later when the Velothi are trying to leave, and he attempts to prevent them from leaving, at which point Boethia eats him and defecates him back out as the Daedric Prince Malakath.
So Trinimac is Malakath. Trinimac is Malakath unpooped.
Correct.
Exactly. It's pre-poop Malakath.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course that's where orcs come from, quote unquote, is when they smeared themselves with it and their skin turned green and they got ugly, and a big propaganda piece, probably from the Altmer, who don't really want to admit that the Orsimer are Mer, but kind of have to begrudgingly accept it.
I see.
Oh yeah, you get all the elves who are sitting there like, no, they're beast folk, spitting on the ground.
Oh,
Exactly.
we are not them beast folk.
What a bunch of bozos. So she whispers to the egg knowledge these forbidden teachings of Trinimac, and I think that the only implication there, necessarily for me at least, is that she is whispering heresies to Vivec, which is where he gets his sort of adversarial, controversial nature from. Is Vivec is a well-studied egg knowledge at this point, understanding both the ways of Veloth and the ways of the heretical Trinimac worshippers that are roving out there outside of the Holy Land. So Vec understands the multitudes of reality.
He only understands multitudes of reality. In reality, he only understands 2 things: Gugu and Gaga. During that
exactly, because he's an egg at this point. Which, maybe it's even a stretch to say Gugu and Gaga, because typically you're unegged by that point. But Vivec's a smart egg.
Spam the egg in the chat now. Spam the egg in the chat, everyone.
Absolutely. Eggs in the chat from my man Vec. My man-woman Vec. That hasn't come up yet, but it will. So Vivec understands the teachings of Trinimac and is said to possess invisible knowledge of words and of swords. The swords section comes in right after these words. that are being whispered, which sort of are implied to kind of shape Vivec's early knowledge as a warrior poet. When 7 Daedra come to Vivec's mother, or Vivec's surrogate, I suppose, if you want to say it, they come to the Nechiman's wife, and they whisper to this egg all of these different fighting styles that can be achieved by movements of the bones. So they're basically, you know, when you play classical music for a baby and it's supposed to make them smarter in the womb. This is kind of like that, but you're playing Bruce Lee movies for a baby to make them a better fighter. Or
Yeah.
you're showing the baby like MMA matches. And so these Daedra, they come and they do their pillar of fighting styles along with the Demi-Prince Fa Nui Ten, whose name means multiplier of motions.
Is he a
And
Daedric Prince
they-
or is he a Demi-Prince?
Demi-Prince.
He's a Demi-Prince.
Who does
Yeah,
he
he's a
belong to?
Demi-Prince.
I mean, he could potentially be a Daedric prince. We don't know how many there actually are.
By the way,
Just
Yeah.
the ones that interact with
name me the top
with
10.
Nern,
I
but
might
there are
actually-
more.
I might actually like quickly assemble Dig Off Earth breaks down 10 Daedric Demi-Princes.
You want to hit the top 10 Daedric princes?
Demi-Princes. Where did they all
Oh,
they
I
are?
don't know.
man.
Is there even 10 demi-princes in the lore?
There's more.
That's a really solid question. I can only off the top of my head name maybe Fa Nui Ten, and is Molag Grunda a demi-prince?
Also-
Molag Bal's child?
Also, I think Sugarat, the sweet throw goddess, is also a Demi-Prince.
Sure. Okay.
Another interesting note here. Then an 8th Daedroth. It's I believe this was before they decided that Daedroth was a specific type of Daedra. The
Yeah.
Daedroth being what we fight in Oblivion, the crocodile-looking guys. They always shake around their body and do a
I mean,
little
we also saw them in...
light up effect.
We saw Daedroth in Morrowind, too.
Oh, did we? Then
Yes.
interesting. Then maybe he literally is a Daedroth.
Well, the question there is, I think Daedroth are like and I could be wrong, I think they're like a Molag Bal thing, aren't they?
No, they mirror...
Or are they just like a general...
I think
They're a
general.
Mehrunes Dagon thing?
They're general, but they were closely associated with Mehrunes, along with the clan fear, yes.
Sure. Absolutely. So that'd be an interesting thing to note if the use of Daedroth there actually means anything in particular. But Fa Nui Ten teaches Vec along with these other Daedra, gives him a special martial knowledge that is supposedly out of the grasps of, everybody else at this point. But we get a little passage later on here that tells us that Vivec, in his latter years, learned a better one. And so Vec is essentially granting these bits of knowledge that he receives from the Daedra to his people, which implies maybe that the Dunmer or the Chimer, however you want to say, receive their martial knowledge from Vec and what he learned from these Daedra. And then we get a final quote that goes really hard right at the bottom. "For I have crushed a world with my left hand," he will say, "but in my right hand is how it could have won against me. Love is under my will only." And aside from being an instant indication of how very, I guess, self-absorbed and narcissistic. Yeah, exactly. Aside from being an indication of how narcissistic Vivec is, there is also given this idea that Vec shares this knowledge with his people, but still holds back for himself the greatest of all of these knowledges. And there's a whole philosophical discussion on why Vec does this and if this is okay. I'm sure there's YouTube videos out there and there's texts that talk about it forever.
Oh,
but
I
for us-
should I should also mention. Now, this might be before the term became used in these circles, but there is in the trans community there is an idea of being an egg until you have decided to permanently express your gender as it is to you. So it's very interesting that it happened to be that Michael Kirkbride used an egg to describe Vivec, who is a what is the I know hermaphrodite. I believe has become a little bit of a problematic word, but I know there's another one. Somebody in the comments can let me know what the proper term is. But yes, it's kind of an interesting comparison.
Non-binary?
I'm not sure which came first, but
he's not numb. So the term that's used in the Elder Scrolls text is hermaphrodite, but the modern medical term is like intersex.
Thank you, intersex. That's the one.
Yes.
So Vivec is intersex, but Elder Scrolls says hermaphrodite, which is interesting because hermaphrodite comes from our real world and is a combination of two, Hermes and Aphrodite. So it's term hermaphrodite doesn't actually even make sense in world.
Yeah, that's true because the etymology would be, huh?
Yeah. But we can argue about etymology all the time because the word volcano also comes from that. So,
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Etymology with words is it doesn't really mean much, but that's what they refer to Vivec as.
Imagine if it's like they're not speaking English; they're speaking their own language. It's just like translated for us to understand.
Yeah.
Terms. Let's just say
exactly.
That,
Exactly.
Not create even more lore holes than there already are. Please.
Let's not go about nitpicking the linguistic validity of anything in Elder Scrolls here.
Yes,
because then we're gonna get into a whole nother rabbit hole.
All right, let's continue.
So here's the real question is, depending on how long we want the podcast to be, we can be reading these sermons as we go, or we can just summarize them. I've got a really healthy helping of knowledge about the sermons to summarize them. So do we want to keep reading them line by line, or what do we want to do here?
I think we should do it line by line, personally.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm totally down. I want to make sure I'm not boring you boys, though. This is my favorite thing.
No, we're
I love this text.
We're not bored. Actually, this is fascinating.
Acabsolutely. So we ended our last sermon with the ending of the words is ALMSIVI, which ALMSIVI is a sort of an acronym, kind of, except for they do the acronym like you would do it in Russian, for instance. And they just say it, which I love. I think that we should start doing that in English exclusively. So, ALMSIVI is Almalexia, Sothisil, and Vivec. And then we move on to Sermon 2, which reads in the first line, "The Nechaman's wife, who carried the egg of Vivec within her, went looking for the lands of the Indoril. Along the journey, many spirits came to see her and offer instructions to her son-daughter, the future glorious, invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell, Vivec." So, yeah, cue Elder Scrolls music. Absolutely, this is where the game starts.
Cue Avatar: The Last Airbender music.
Absolutely.
So, allegedly,
Vivec is the Avatar.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, in my opinion, this is like a very based opinion, but I'm going to say it. Chat, you may disagree, but allegedly, maybe the writers of Avatar: The Last Airbenders were also inspired by Morrowind lore, because Morrowind did exist when that show came out,
it did.
2 years after.
Yeah, I would actually be interested to know how that goes. Yeah, because Morrowind came out in 2002 and Avatar came out in 2005, right?
Yes.
Yeah, God's glorious year.
Yeah, I remember.
So-
It is. We're only in Sermon 2, and we've already been Vivec, the future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell.
That's right.
The pride oozes in this text.
Oh yeah, this is an autobiography. So this is meant to have been penned by Vivec,
We should make
or at
like,
least to have been transcribed by Vivec,
after this is done.
transcribed from Vivec.
After this is done, after we go through all the lessons, we should talk about why Vivec is the real antagonist, basically, and
Absolutely, that's our
smear him.
finale.
Yeah, and talk about the whole situation, what he did to Azura. In delicate terms, not monetizable terms, but still, you know. Did that even happen?
Speaking of monetizable terms, Emperor Nero did nothing wrong. Put something hilarious in chat about Vivec.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too.
That goes hard.
All right.
Vivec doesn't have boobies though, unfortunately. That'd be great. Can we? When do we get a? Have you guys seen classical interpretations of Baphomet?
A what?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Baphomet's this Abrahamic demon who is often depicted with one side of its body has a breast and the other side does not, because Baphomet's a male female demon thing. This is another religion entirely that we're not going to talk about too much, but I want an interpretation of Vivec where Vivec just looks like Baphomet. That would go hard. So the next line reads, "Oh yeah,
go ahead." Yeah. No.
The first spirit threw his arms around her and hugged his knowledge in tight. The Nechaman's wife became soaked with the incalculable effort. The egg was delighted and did some somersaults inside of her, bowing to the five corners of the world and saying, 'Thus whoever performs this holy act shall be proud and mighty among the rest.'"
Not Saturday.
That's... I don't know if that line is monetization worthy.
Yeah, it still is. It's not
exactly, but it's got some, at least what I see as some pretty explicit kind of implications here. So the first spirit throws its arms around the Nechaman's wife, and the Nechaman's wife becomes soaked in incalculable effort. And you can, our listeners can interpret that however you want. The egg was delighted.
I don't think the YouTube AI bot will interpret it in a demonetizable way, so we should be fine.
Absolutely. I love the idea. The 36 Lessons of Vivec are completely YouTube AI proof because they use so many innuendos.
Oh yeah, so much.
The incalculable effort that this Nechaman's wife is soaked in pleases the egg of Vivec, and so Vivec does somersaults inside of her and bows to the five corners of the world and says, "Thus whomever performs this holy act shall be proud and mighty among the rest." So I think Vivec is saying, "Get some, boys."
Now, this is interesting and I'm not going to say it's exactly, but might be a reference to Islamic culture where they pray towards Mecca, bowing to the five corners of the world, whoever, does this holy act. I have a feeling it may have been a little bit inspired by Islamic culture.
Someone says so, Yubei from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Yubel from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I haven't watched Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
I have not seen Yu-Gi-Oh!
I've only seen the first.
I don't know
Yu-Gi-Oh!
anything about Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, I only watched the original card game show, not the spin-offs. Well, I've done a little bit, but anyway, that's off topic.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
So that's the first spirit that comes along the path to see the Nechaman's wife. The second spirit is described in our next line. The second spirit was too aloof and acted above his station, so much that he was driven off by a headache spell. The third spirit, I guess his name is At-Hatur, came down to the Netchman's wife while she was relaxing for a while under an emperor parasol. His garments were made from implications of meaning, and the egg looked at them 3 times. The first time, Vivec said, "Ha! This means nothing." After looking at it a second time, he said, there might be something here after all. Finally, At-Hatur's garments, a side glance. He said, "Amazing, the ability to infer significance in something devoid of detail. This is a proverb," At-Hatur said, and then he left.
This one is memed on a lot in the community. There is a proverb, At-Hatur said, and then he left. And I don't think it was meant to be interpreted that way. I think he was replying to Vivec's statement as there is a proverb, as opposed to starting a sentence and then ending it and leaving. I believe it's a back reference to the statement that was just said.
Exactly. He's saying it's more like, I guess if you want to give it like the inflection, it's amazing, the ability to infer significance in something devoid of detail. And then At-Hatur says, "There's a proverb."
Yeah, exactly.
I think I agree. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
I see.
But this line's pretty easy. Because this line is basically what we're doing right now, which is glancing at not necessarily garments, but we're looking at implications of meaning, and we are trying to interpret any kind of significance from them. So I think it's talking about Vivec and the desire to, I guess, interpret things and to extrapolate meaning from things, such as the garment of this spirit, which are made of these implications. So I think this is one of those things in the 36 lessons that is kind of an interesting proverb that is just sort of thrown in here, and it gives a fun little meaning, in my opinion. It's cute to read.
I'm wondering if clothes, garments in this respect might be also related to culture, but I don't have a solid outlook on that one.
Sure. When I imagine At-Hatur, I imagine like a guy enclosed in books or something, is what it seems like. Just covered in like he's wearing a robe of scrolls or something.
He's like clothed Atronach.
Yeah, he's like a scroll Atronach or something. But he's wearing these implicit garments, and the egg knowledge of Vivec is looking at them and trying to extrapolate meaning until he finally does, and the meaning that he extrapolates is that he has extrapolated meaning out of nothing. There is no meaning. He has created the meaning through his extrapolations.
Exactly. And that is the proverb.
Man.
Exactly. And that's what I just did too, because this is just brown liquid writing, so it doesn't actually mean anything.
All right. What is the next line?
Here we get introduced to the fourth spirit, who's interesting because he came with the fifth spirit. The fourth spirit came with the fifth spirit, for they were cousins. They could ghost touch and probed inside the egg to find its core. Some say Vivec at this point was shaped like a star with its penumbra broken off. Others that it looked like a revival of vanished forms. "From my side of the family," the first cousin said, "I bring you a series of calamities that will bring about the end of the universe. And from my side," said the second cousin, "I bring you all the primordial marriages that must happen within them, each one." At this, the egg laughed. I am given too much to bear so young. I must have been born before. What do you guys think? You guys want to extrapolate some meaning from these
Yes.
garments here?
We gave you Alabama.
They That's right. The fourth and fifth spirits come and they go, Vec, we have given you Alabama. That would have been way funnier. Can we change that in the lore? Rewrite? Retcon?
We need to ask Kirkbride.
Absolutely. Somebody call Kirkbride right now. So the yeah, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say what. So, I bring you a series of calamities that will bring about the end of the universe, and from the other side, I bring you all the primordial marriages that must happen within them, each one. Is he talking about? Is the second cousin talking about calamities there? Are they saying that the calamities are necessarily include primordial marriages?
Yeah, so I think the idea here is, or at least the way that I interpret it, is that these series of calamities that will bring about the end of the universe, they have within them these primordial marriages that must happen. And so I think the first cousin brings forth the idea of these calamities, and then the second one brings forth the makeup that will create such calamities.
I see.
So, sort of to allow Vivec to understand the calamities, giving Vivec the knowledge of not only the calamities themselves, but also what makes up said calamities.
I'll be honest with you, I kind of feel bad for the Nitcherman's wife. They're all poking and prodding her because
they've got the ghost hands. They stick them inside of her and feel about Vivec.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't care about you, Nitcherman's wife. Poor Nitcherman, though. He's getting, like, just cocked by... Anyhow.
Yeah, the Nitcherman got cucked by a couple gods, dozens of Daedra, some spirits. Oh yeah, it's rough all around for the Nitcherman.
Emperor Nero says, honestly, Vivec caused the Dunmer downfall all because he was a little obsessive girlfriend. Along with Almalexia.
Look,
yes.
He gave them... Wait. He gave them ample warning. When he first stopped that meteor from Sheogorath, he told them, if you ever lose faith in me, this is gonna drop. And he did not lie.
I point back to Sermon 1 where Vivec says, love is under my will only.
Exactly.
Let's continue. What's the next line? Okay,
we get our final
this is amazing,
spirit
just
here.
so you know. I love this.
The 36 lessons, they are amazing.
Yeah,
they're
like
so great.
going line by line was the best move. I don't think summarizing it would have been as fun. We can summarize at the end, but
the summary is a little bit. You don't get as much of the juicy meat of the text that is very important.
Yeah, really
because it's very juicy. Yes, it's very juicy.
Everyone write in the chat #juicy.
#juicy text.
Yes.
So this next line reads, and then the sixth spirit appeared, the Black Hands Mafala, who taught the Velothi at the beginning of days all the arts of sex and murder. Its burning heart melted the eyes of the Nitcherman's wife, and took the egg from her belly with 6 cutting strokes. The egg image, however, could see into what it had been before in ancient times, when the earth still cooled. It was not blinded. It joined with the Daedroth, and took its former secrets, leaving a few behind to keep the web of the world from disentangling. Then the Black Hands Mafala put the egg back into the Nitcherman's wife, and blew on her with magic breath until the hole closed up. But the Daedroth did not give her back her eyes, saying, God hath 3 keys. of birth, of machines, and of the words between. Within this sermon, the wise may find one half of these keys. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI. This is one of my favorite lines, or one of my favorite sections, I guess. It's several lines in the 36 lessons. So basically what happens here is Mafala shows up, burns the Necheman's wife's eyes out from her skull, cuts her open, and then Vivec looks at Mafala, calls Mafala's bluff, and so Mafala goes, drat, foiled again. And Vivec merges with Mafala and then makes what's left of Mafala put the egg back into his mother, heal the mother, and then Mafala gives an evil speech before, zooming on out of there. This is superb. What do we want to say about this?
First of all, the comment says, so the occult alchemical rebis is probably a lot of the influence behind this, which has ties to both old Sumerian mythology as well as weird Christian stuff. Morrowind has the best storyline Elder Scrolls wise, and then I don't actually know as much about Vivec as I do about occult stuff, but it's fascinating so far. Okay, yes. If it's fascinating, like and subscribe, and continue commenting. But the way I would interpret this, it's kind of unreal. It's not even realistic for a Elder Scrolls world. I just can't imagine that happening. Connor, what do you think?
It is wacky.
Yeah, it's pretty wacky. I agree.
I think everyone's speechless because, I know, it is pretty wacky, yes. Also, it's just kind of ridiculous they didn't return her vision. I still feel bad for Necheman's wife.
Oh man, what a move. What a move. Mafala, absolutely vindictive old spider here. This arachnid horror comes up and blinds the lady, and doesn't even have the decency to give her back her sight for no reason to. It's just like a vindictive, cruel act, it seems.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe you could interpret it as an accident, because it doesn't say Mafala deliberately burned the Necheman's wife's eyes out. It says its burning heart melted the eyes of the Necheman's wife. And so if you want to interpret that in a different way, you could even argue that there is some kind of a strong emotion that Mafala exudes that sort of incidentally burns out the Necheman's wife's eyes. But if it wasn't on purpose, then she should have given the eyes back.
Agreed.
Feel bad for the Necheman's wife.
Absolutely. It's such a tragedy for the Necheman's wife. So this is our sixth spirit, the Black Hands Mafala. That's a great nickname, the Black Hands. Mafala is an actual Daedric prince, confirmed. She appears in I think every Elder Scrolls game that has Daedric princes in it.
She's connected to the Murakam,
yeah, she's
Brotherhood, aka the Black Hand. Ooh, anyway.
Absolutely. So Mafala is a pretty prolific Daedric prince, as it would turn out. And so the Black Hands Mafala comes over here. And depending on how you want to interpret this exactly, Vivec merges with the Black Hands Mafala, and that's sort of the first, I guess, indication of anticipations is Vivec kind of absorbs that which makes up Mafala, and Vivec is of course Mafala is of course the anticipation of Vivec. So when you think about the Tribunal, the way that the Dunmer think about the Tribunal is that the characters within the Tribunal, ALMSIVI, are all sort of the kind of spawn of these old Daedra that were worshipped by the Velothi. And so this is where Vivec becomes a god, you could argue, is at absorbing this thing from Mafala, and Vivec sees what Mafala was before the Earth, when the Earth was still cooling, or when the Earth still cooled. And so, whatever Vivec sees in Mafala scares Mafala so bad that the Daedric prince of sex and plots and secret murder here goes, jeepers, and then leaves before placing Vivec back into his mother. So there's another very self-centered autobiographical piece from Vivec, is him saying, "Oh yeah, I stared down Mafala and she just ran away like a little coward."
Yeah.
Yes. Which totally true story, bro.
True story. It's a true story. Anybody who doubts the validity of this story,
They're heretic, obviously.
Congratulations on the brain cells, you heretic.
Let's continue.
So, Sermon 3. Being blind, the Nechaman's wife wandered into a cave on her way to the domains of House Indoril. It so happened that this cave was a Dwemeri stronghold. The Dwemer spied the egg and captured the Nechaman's wife. They bound her head to foot and brought her deep within the earth. She heard one say, "Go and make a simulacrum of her and place it back on the surface. For she has something akin to what we have, and so the Velothi will covet it and notice if she is too long away." In the dark, the Nechaman's wife felt great knives try to cut her open. When the knives did not work, the Dwemeri used solid sound. When those did not work, the great heat was brought to bear. Nothing was of any use, and the egg of Vivec remains safe within her.
Poor woman. Everyone's writing in the chat.
Yeah.
So-
the first 5 or 6 of the sermons of Vivec are just Vivec's mom getting tortured until Vivec is born.
So we get our reference to sound here applied to the
tonal
Dwemeri.
architecture.
Tonal architecture, yes. So
Very
the Dwemeri used some sort of ancient, I believe it's kind of a quote-unquote music of the universe. If anybody's ever read Lord of the Rings or Silmarillion, the universe there is built by a chorus from the Overgod and his lesser deity creations, and it's basically the same thing. The Dwemer are tapping into the sound of the universe and using it in their magic, pretty much. It's a type of magic, basically.
Yeah, it's a type of magic they call tonal architecture, which they use to shape the fabric of the universe. It's very cool. And they use that after knives don't work, and after knives don't work, they bring a great heat to bear. And so this entire section, we've got a reference to a simulacrum, which in this case basically just means a clone. And so they want to make a clone or an android, or however the Dwemer would accomplish this. And in making this simulacrum, they are hoping to send her up and trick the Velothi into thinking that they have not kidnapped Vec's mother. So this passage essentially amounts to, and the Nechaman's wife was walking, and then she got jumped by a bunch of dwarves, and they decided to clone her and keep her in their basement.
It's like,
yeah, the dwarves are notoriously not good people for the most part.
I'm sorry for laughing, but it's
I'm
just
gonna
like,
say it. Yeah.
it's just like that really
No,
cartoonish.
it's comedic. It's goofy.
It's just like this really cartoonish
Oh, yeah.
scene. If
It's
anyone's
like
seen,
mustache twirlingly evil.
has anyone seen Grimm's Adventures of Billy and Mindy?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's a scene there, like, I don't know, like, Grim falls on the ground, so, like, someone beats him up, and then a bunch of dwarves come in, I think it was Grim or someone else, and they just, like, take their shovels and start beating him up. It was, it was one of the
So
best
we got a
scenes.
comment. Of all the tribunal, which one do you think was least egomaniacal? Well, that's really easy. That's
Sotasil.
going to be Sothasil.
That's why he
I was gonna say
died.
100%, 100% Sothis.
Set gave 0 craps when his god powers started waning. He was like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen all along. I don't really care. I've already used up what I needed from it. So if
yeah.
I lose it, it's not a big deal.
Copium.
Well, I think it should really be mentioned that Connor, you said earlier that the skin in Elder Scrolls is used a lot as an allegory for good and evil, things like that. And so if you say again.
No, I said I was agreeing with you. Yes.
Oh, indeed, I hear you. And so the allegory that can be seen here with the tribunal is, if you've ever seen photos of them or you've seen them in game, which I'm sure anybody listening to this probably has. Vivec is depicted as pretty much as a man who is split down the middle. One half of him is dark like a Dunmer, and the other half is golden like a Chimer. Almalexia is completely golden like a Chimer. Almalexia does not change at all. And
Right.
Sothasil is, for all intents and purposes, he just looks like a Dunmer. And so this is a representation, at least in my interpretation, of the amount of guilt that they feel for basically just like slapping Nerevar into the dirt and taking their godly power. So think of it like this, or at least the way I think of it is Almalexia, complete, sociopathic egomaniac who revels in the idea of being a goddess. She doesn't change. She's still the golden skin Chimer. She's done nothing wrong. Hashtag Almalexia did nothing wrong. That's her mindset.
And well.
I have a bit of a different take on that, actually. Oh, well, continue,
Sure.
and then I'll give mine.
Vivec has a sort of dichotomy within themselves of a sort of, there's the whole thing about, Vec the god and Vivec the man, or the elf, I guess, and this idea of Vivec being a kind of Vivec knows that what he did is wrong, and we'll get later into it. The sermons, there's even a sort of unconscious admission that Vivec betrayed Nerevar, and so Nerevar is, or not Nerevar, but Vivec is both this sort of fully aware and entirely unaware being of his own egomaniacal nature at the same time. Whereas Sothasil is, despite being a sort of cloistered clockwork god who's very often said to disappear for centuries at a time, I would genuinely say that Sothasil is, in spirit, the closest to the people. Sothasil wants to invent things. Sothasil wants to better Tamriel. He makes, he creates the Clockwork City, for instance, as an improvement on Tamriel for his disciples. And Sothasil is oftentimes, draining himself of his divine power in order to further the goals that he sees for his people. Whereas Almalexia pretty much just sits up on the throne, and Vivec sits somewhere in between those two. Is how I see it.
So I would take it a different approach. I think it's based on their acceptance. Okay, it's very similar to what you said, but I think it's more tied to their acceptance or rejection of Azura's curse. Sure. And guilt may also may factor into that, as when Azura turns them into, or tries to turn all of the Chimer into Dunmer, Sothasil basically just immediately accepts it and says, yeah, see, this is what we were talking about. The Daedra are savages. Why would we worship them? They
Sure.
cursed an entire people just because of a broken promise. Why even would we bother still worshiping them now? Fully embracing the new culture that was about to be born, known as the Dunmer culture, which is in fact separate from Velothi culture.
Oh, yeah.
However,
Very,
I
very.
think that Vivec was wise enough to both accept the curse as justified, but also realize that the curse was bullcrap. As
Absolutely. Absolutely.
as opposed to Almalexia, who said to herself, oh, I am perfection. The Chimer are perfection. I am not going to change my ways. I am not accepting this. And that's kind of, at least how I see it, it's kind of born out through her actions in Morrowind. I mean, she does nothing.
Oh, yeah.
She just sits in her palace and is worshipped by, and it's all about her. With Sotha Sil, it's all about the Dunmer, and with Vivec, it's a little of both.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, Samurai Shota had the mentality of a Dwemer.
Pretty much.
Well-
Between well, yes and no. But between Vorin and Sotha, Vorin probably knew a lot more about the Dwemer, which is why Indor Nerevar invited him with them in the first place, is because he was kind of an expert on Dwemer tech.
Dwemer weed.
Now
Dwemer
after he fell asleep for a very long time, Sotha Sil kind of filled that role himself and started studying Dwemer technology and things like that. But in the very beginning, it would have been Dagoth, actually, that was the most Dwemer-minded.
All right.
Yeah, man. It's a wacky world. Dagoth supremacy.
Well, I mean, as ascended sleepers, we must praise our Lord Dagoth.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Let's continue the. Let's continue. What's
Our
the
next
one?
section here is it's a dialogue from the Dwemer. A Dwemer said, "Nothing is of any use. We must go and misinterpret this." And that's a very important line. I'll say that again. A Dwemer said, "Nothing is of any use. We must go and misinterpret this." Vivec felt that his mother was afraid, and so consoled her. "The fire is mine. Let it consume thee, and make a secret door at the altar of Padhom, in the house of Boet Hiah, and where we become safe and looked after." This old prayer made the Nechaman's wife smile, and begin such a deep sleep that when the Dwemeri Atronox returned with torn spheres and cut her apart, she did not wake, and died peacefully. Vivec was removed from her womb and placed within a magical glass for further study. To confound his captors, he channeled his essence into love and emotion the Dwemer knew nothing about.
Now, if you notice here, this is pretty much entirely anti-Dwemer rhetoric.
Yes.
Yeah, this is slam poetry against the Dwemer.
It's
so
absolutely slam poetry.
Our first line here is and Dwemer said, "Nothing is of any use." They can't get into they can't get past Vivec's defense, and they can't hurt his mother. We must go and misinterpret this. And so that line indicates essentially that Vivec is calling these Dwemer, they're fools. They misinterpret the things that they're looking at, and they are going to go off and sort of overanalyze why they can't eviscerate Vivec.
Right. And
for no reason.
That might possibly be related to the fact that the Dwemer were actively anti-theist.
Yeah.
Quick breakdown. Well, okay. Deist means you believe in some sort of god. theist is a specific god. Atheist is the rejection of the claim of God. And an anti-theist would be somebody who is against religion in general. And the Dwemer are the epitome example of anti-theism. They know that gods exist. They just reject them outright as worthless.
Yes. So,
Which is probably why they can't penetrate Vivec's defenses, because they are not really spiritually minded, and Vivec is kind of all about that.
I mean,
Yeah, they can't understand Vivec.
I'll be a more
Right.
realistic person. The way I see it is that she just got killed by a bunch of Dwarven spheres, and
She did. That's
and it's just
that's
and
that's
he was born right before, like, what's it called? He was already in term and someone like found him or something like that, but like she gave birth before she could, what's it called, die.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that's what happened. You know, the Dwemer are starting to cut into her. Vivec, supposedly, whispers this prayer, and he talks about the altar of Padme, and the house of Boetia, and so he's whispering a sort of a Velothi prayer to her as she's being eviscerated by Dwemeri Atrinox. And spears.
Yeah.
So you're entirely right.
Yeah, and she's like, it's like the Netroman's wife was afraid. You think?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I like that it took like the emotional master guru Vivec this long to realize that the Netroman's wife was afraid.
Yeah, like
she's
and the poor husband is just like, where the hell did my wife go? What's going on?
She's like slumping around Azura's coast with her milk fingers when Mafala appears and burns her eyes out, and then she gets captured by Dwemer, who cut her open and kill her.
Nah,
and Vivec's like, oh man, Mom, are you okay?
No.
If I didn't know any better, Vivec takes a little bit out of Moleg Ball's book here.
Hold on. Let me. I'm sorry. This is too good not to. This is messed up, but this is too good not to like draw. Hold on. How would I?
Oh man, are we doing Dwarven constructs eviscerating Vivec's mother?
No, just.
I don't know what this is. It's going to be gross.
So what do you see? They referenced Dwemeri Atrinox. Do you think that may be a specific thing, like as in Dwemeri Atrinox are not specifically like guardian spheres, the spiders, the giant colossuses? Like, do you think this is just referring generally to Dwemer automatons, or do you think Dwemeri Atrinox are their own thing?
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anything Kirkbright says in this is just an allegory for something he was thinking about at the time, and I don't think that the reference to Atrinox has anything to do necessarily with like an in-game enemy or anything.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree.
I think it just means like we would call them like a construct in the game is probably what they'd be labeled as.
What are you drawing?
Yeah.
What are you drawing?
I'm trying to draw one of those goofy, messed up Dwemeri masks.
I see.
Just to give everybody a good indication of what the egg carrier here, Vivec's mother, might have been looking at. while she was being
Honestly,
eviscerated.
just out of everything that happened, I feel like the one thing that's true is that Vivek's mother, while she was like pregnant with him, went somewhere and got eviscerated by the Dwemer spheres. The end. That's it. Like nothing like.
I mean, that's 100%. That could happen to any one of us at any time, right now.
Someone says, "Do you think the Dwemer were all psychopaths?" And someone says, "Honestly,
I
I
don't know,
think
maybe
Vivek."
sociopaths.
Honestly, at this point, I think Vivek smoked a fat bowl before writing this stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Vivek was definitely on the divine brown liquid when he wrote
The
this.
divine
Yeah,
Puma.
yeah.
Yeah, and
By
so
the way,
the final line that we
we're
get
actually
here
streaming at the same time as Volburger, which is like very weird.
Oh,
is who?
With Wilbur.
Oh.
You know, the guy Connor used to moderate for the cat one.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Yeah, let's see. Aladile says that Vivek had a terribly tragic childhood. That's for certain. We'll get into the actual childhood of Vivek at some point, because there's a legitimate, like, not necessarily canon, but there's a story that explains Vivek's actual sort of childhood, and we'll talk about that one at some point during the course of the 36 lessons. But it is incredibly tragic. So after delivering this prayer, the Dwemer pop Vivek's egg into a tube, basically to try and study it, and Vivek uses the power of love and friendship and emotions to confuse the Dwemer, basically, and they go, "This is too much." And somebody's putting it. Aladile says in the chat, there's a theory that he was abused, to put it lightly. And yes, that's what I'm referring to. So our next line reads, "The egg said, love is used not only as a constituent in moods and affairs, but
Mods.
also the raw material mods and affairs." I'm thinking about Skyrim too much. Love is used not only as a constituent in moods and affairs, but also as the raw material from which relationships produce hour later exasperations, regrettably fashioned restrictions, riddles laced with affections known only to the loving couple, and looks that linger too long. Love is also an often used ingredient in some transparent verbal and non-verbal transactions, where, eventually, it can sometimes be converted into a variety of true devotions, some of which yield tough, insoluble, and infusible unions. In its basic form, love supplies approximately 13 draughts of all energy that is derived from relationships. Its role and value in society is at large are controversial. The Dwemer were vexed at these words and tried to hide behind their power symbols. They sent their Atronox to remove the egg image from their cave and placed it within the simulacrum they had made of Vivek's mother. The Dwemer said, "We Dwemer are only aspirants to this that the Velothi have. They shall be our doom in this, and the 8 known words, Nern, Lakan, Retek, Thender, Kunt, or I guess it's Kinert, Akat, Mara, and Junal. The secret doom is within this sermon. The ending of the words is ALMSIVI." So here, as a very short summary, is Vivek gives his little anime protagonist speech about the value of love, and tells us about its role in society.
We actually
And the
did
Dwemer
have
go,
You said anime protagonist. Sorry for cutting you off, but you said anime protagonist. We were actually arguing in the very first episode of this podcast that Degath is an anime villain. So, anyway, go on.
Igathar is an anime villain. Uh, so he gives his anime protagonist speech here, and he's sitting here talking about love. And the Dwemer go, we don't understand this. We're going to hide behind our power symbols, which I think is a reference here to the sort of scientific deity of logic that these Dwemer worship, if you will. And so they send their Atronox, their constructs, to remove the egg, and they put Vivec's egg. His mother is dead, and they put the egg into the simulacrum of his mother. So they replant Vivec's egg into a now pregnant clone of his mother and send that out into the world. And then the Dwemer say, our doom is, and then they say like old words for, for essentially the world and the divines within it. So they talk about Lacan, Raquette, which are,
Yeah,
all
Lorcan,
references.
Arke, Stendar, Kinnereth, Akatosh, Mara, and
Julianos.
Julianos. However, interesting that they mention Nirn, because Nirn is not just a place, it is a goddess in some of the founding mythologies within the Elder Scrolls, and she's probably a reference to Anu's sister wife, daughter wife. I don't really know how you would explain that, but she is the one who Padme murders, and then Anu throws Padme outside of time, and he goes into his son to go to sleep, and that's what dreamt up the Elder Scrolls world.
Hi, Lauren.
So, and you can see this lore expressly in Khajiit mythology, who kind of interpret Anu as an abusive husband. Yeah, Anu or Anur in Khajiit lore is a bit of a douche.
I mean, he's a douche in general.
Well, not in some writings, but I would agree, yeah.
I see.
So what would you say to what the secret to doom is here that he's referring to?
Yeah, so the Dwemer says here, we Dwemer are only aspirants to this that the Velothi have. They shall be our doom in this, and the 8 known worlds. And so I think that when they talk about the secret to doom here, at least my interpretation, is that they are talking about, the dwarves specifically, are talking about their doom that is yet to come, them disappearing, and they're referring to these divines as being their doom.
I wonder how that... See, because Julianos wouldn't have been a god at this point. Neither would Stendar, actually.
But you see,
they were both mortals.
They exist outside.
Well, I think the... I mean, you can say they exist outside of time, and then, again, we can also look at them and sort of... If we pretend that we are in-world scholars of these texts and don't just say, this was written on brown liquid, so it doesn't matter. But if we pretend that we're in-world scholars looking at this, you could say, yeah, they exist outside of time. Or, again, you could say, Vivec wrote this whenever. And so potentially Vivec is not privy to such information.
Oh, I may be wrong on Stendar then. Aladale is correcting me that maybe I'm thinking of Arke and Julianos. Although I must disagree with your assessment there. I don't think that the divines do live outside of time. I think they're restricted by it. Because time existed once Akatosh took form as a linear series of events. I don't think any of the gods are outside of time right now.
That's a good question. Well, the big thing too is that there's references and I should say there's references made by the dragons that they refer to themselves as being outside of time or immune from time, and so you could argue all you want and be like, well, dragons are they're narcissistic,
Well, no, I think they're
lizards,
right, but they're children of Akatosh, which is the time god. So that makes sense for them to be able to describe themselves, quote unquote, outside of time. I just don't think that applies to anyone that wasn't Akatosh's direct lineage.
Sure. So do you think that the this idea of time, do you think that it affects gods as soon as Akatosh invents this idea that Akatosh binds other deities to it? Do you think that Akatosh has the capability of such a thing then?
Yes and no. I would say ultimately yes, because Auriel is depicted as the first quote-unquote god to come together, and once that happened, time initiated itself, and then the other gods start coming into their forms. Because remember that the Aedra, the Aedra and the Daedra are not only just our ancestors and not our ancestors, but the Aedra themselves seem to have a special tie to Aetherius, whereas the Daedric princes seem to have a special tie to Oblivion.
By the way, guys, I'll be right back. You guys can continue. I'll be right back, okay? I need to use the...
Alright, we'll probably be wrapping this up.
I need to use
with
the
this one.
Vivec's temple.
Yeah.
It's for Malakath purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can wrap it up with this one, or we can go off into sermon 4, or however you guys want to do it.
So you want to actually wrap it up now?
Well, let's...
continue?
let's wrap it up here.
Sure.
We can continue the Akatosh discussion, but let's wrap that in a nice little bow. So yeah, what I would say is that the divines not only did not, but could not exist without Akatosh coming first. Because his conscious awakening ceased the non-linear progression of quote-unquote time. It's kind of the same concept as the Big Expansion theory, sometimes misquoted as the Big Bang theory, where there is no time before time, but there is kind of, though. And in the same vein, there was a version of time that was happening between the interplay of Anu and Padme and Anuiel and Sithis, but it wasn't strictly linear until Akatosh was formed from this kind of, or I should say Auriel is formed from Anuiel. The only god, the Aedra, that I would think would be least affected and possibly came about at the exact same time would be Lorkhan, because Lorkhan comes directly from Sithis. He is Sithis's version of Anuiel. He is Sithis's version of Auriel. So it's kind of described as Auriel is time and Lorkhan is space. Now, that distinction doesn't make sense now that we know that space-time is essentially one thing. However, in this scenario, space and time are two separate entities personified between Auriel and Lorkhan. So likely they both appeared at the same time. Auriel coalesced into time, and then the rest of the Aedra and Daedra began to pick permanent forms for themselves because time was now linear.
So
they could do that now.
Ariel's elf. More like human to Ariel's elf.
Say again?
More like he's human to Ariel's elf.
Yes.
Because the common sense orc to the Ariel's elf.
And then, of course, the ending of the words is ALMSIVI. That's going to be pretty much every chapter.
Yeah, it's gonna be all of them. So, really, what you can interpret of that is the ending of the words are ALMSIVI. That's just a fact.
Yeah, it's just every sermon, ending of the words, ALMSIVI. All right, we got through. We got through 4 sermons.
Four,
Four
right?
whole sermons.
That was
Oh,
4?
three. Sorry, three
whole
sermons.
Three whole sermons. Yeah, we got through 3 whole sermons.
And it only took us an hour and 50 minutes.
So how many are there?
Just about 36.
There's 36 of these babies, and they just get more and more packed with juicy lore detail. So as the series go on, the episodes will eventually start being 2-parters and 3-parters, and
Yes.
Hopefully, there are some sermons that get shorter later on. So hopefully we can get through some little and a lot of them are not that deep, but there definitely will be some really fat sermons that'll come up.
Because Vivec is not that
definitely.
Just like Vivec. Shallow. The disclaimer must be said once again that none of this means anything, and Vivec is a liar, and he doesn't love you.
yeah, no, Vivec is a false god. Praise Dagon. Look,
write this in very big letters. Vivec does not like you. Does not love you as the last.
Yeah, Vivec does not love you.
The moment dissected my mind. I love that. Okay. We still have the bits and pieces of the National's wife. Okay. Vivec does not love you. Both the false god. No, I'm not gonna write that.
Trash on him, bro. Trash on him.
not involving that stuff into my. Sorry, I have to know. Vivec does not love you. Leave a like and comment, and if you can, a donation for the stream. Share, write your opinions. I don't know. Just what did I say? The Vivec loves only me. Yes.
Thanks to all our ascended sleepers who have come to hear more lore tidbits granted graciously by our Lord Dagoth.
Vivec will love himself.
Praise be.
Praise be.
Praise be. All right. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Indra Nerwar, for your deep wisdom when it comes to. How did you not? Before I end this, I have a question. How did you not go insane reading this?
I think I've read the 36 lessons probably more times than there are lessons. I love this piece of text so much. I did go insane reading this, and that's why I know so much about it.
Well, you have been blessed by Shigora himself, then.
Oh yeah. Anytime, boys. I'm always glad to come here and just take a big old fat doo-doo on Vivec.
A very big Malakath, yes.
Drop a Malakath on him. That's so bad. That's good. Oh, I love that.
Lord.
I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, I use it. Did you guys not hear what I said? Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a moment. I need to go to Vivec's temple to create Malakath. Which is what I'm going to do after
I didn't
this
hear the
stream.
Malakath line. I didn't hear the Malakath line. I did hear the Vivec's temple line though.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna end it here. Hopefully, we didn't break too many minds yet. This is a lot. So
Yeah.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
joining us, and we will hopefully see you guys next week.
Bye bye.
Yeah. See you guys in Vivec's temple.